Hello, Robs. We're back with Shakespeare's Sweet Art. We're on chapter 4. As you can see, chapter 4. Under the greenwood tree. All was still in the house, and the door of my grandam's room was closed. When an hour later I went to bed, I hesitated beside her chamber a moment, half-minded to go in and tell her of our plan. But it was late, all was quiet. I went on to my own room, resolving to reveal all in the morning. I had uneasy dreams that night, and once I awakened with a start, quite certain that I had heard the cautious opening and closing of a door. I listened attentively for several moments, but heard nothing, and I concluded that I must have been dreaming. When at length I fell asleep again, my slumber was sound, and I did not awaken until much later than was my wont. Dismayed that the sun had moved so high, I dressed hurriedly and ran downstairs. My grandam was nowhere to be seen. For a while I stood dismayed at her absence, all sorts of wild conjectures floating through my brain, but presently I calmed myself. My grandam often went into Stratford to the innkeeper, Mistress Quickly, to sell the produce of our garden. This was probably what she had done this morning. Sometimes she spent the night at the inn. If she did so this time, nothing of our marriage need be said to her until I chose. If she returned early or late in the evening, however, and found me gone, I dismissed the fear with an effort. All was pointing towards a happy consummation of our plans. I would not imagine trouble. Speed onward, happy day, and bring the joyous night. The hours went by and my grandam came not. Evening arrived, and still there were no signs of her. At length, with trembling fingers, I dressed myself in my darkest gown and sat down to await Will's coming. I had not long to wait. Promptly at moonrise, I heard the clatter of hoofs. Next, his familiar quick footstep on the path below. I went to meet him. "Art ready?" he whispered. "That's brave. Come, here's thy cloak." He wrapped it about me with rapid, skillful fingers, then put on a similar one himself. So closely were we muffled that one could not tell which was man, which maid. Even after we had mounted, Will paused and arranged the draperies so that the distinction would still be hard to make. Once on horseback, I forgot my tremors. The night was very lovely. There was a June softness in the air. The round moon smiled upon us. The friendly stars brightened our pathway. The scent of roses made the evening faintly sweet, mysterious. And through this brightness and sweetness I rode with my true lover at my side and forgot all else. Arriving at the Charlecote gates, at last we dismounted cautiously, and Will led the horses to some distance before tying them. Then he returned to me and spoke lowly and rapidly. "Keep thy cloak well about thee, and come, dear Nan. I must show myself to the lads, that they may see I am faithful to the compact. They are not aware of thy presence, nor need they know who thou art. Follow and trust me." A moment later we arrived in the midst of a silent, cautiously moving group which had evidently been awaiting Will's arrival. He quickly gave a few suggestions and commands, obeying which the crowd scattered in various directions. At the house all were to meet. Bring Sir Thomas Lucy forth and clap upon his head the horns from one of the stolen deer, while the lads sang Will's derisive verses. The plan had been arranged before. It took but a few moments to start the youths on their way to the house. Will waited until the last, then turned to me. "Now, Nan, now is our time. They will deem that I have deserted them, but all can be explained later. I have asked two of my comrades to join us at a certain point. I did not say for what reason, but I know they will keep tryst. Come then, sweetheart, let us hasten to the meeting place. The Charlecote woods await us in the moonlight. Such woods as these surely are not in all England else, Nan. See how the sweet night doth gently kiss the trees, and look how the floor of heaven is thick inlaid with patines of bright gold." So talking, he hurried me along, peopling the forest for me, as often before, with the creatures of his fancy. Canst not almost see the fairies, Nan?" he said. That mossy bank is fit to be the couch of Queen Titania herself. Mark those lights that thou seest flicker hither and yon. They are not glow-worms, Nan, as thou mightst think, but King Oberon and his elves who are flitting there. See you, bat? Oh, see yon bat. His flight's impeded by a fairy on his back. Would we had more time to search beneath these nodding blossoms, for there the sprites sleep, airily and soft. And yonder. Get your hand out of the way, dummy. A sudden loud confusion of voices broke across his murmured fancies and put an end to the peace of the perfect night. Will stopped short. What has happened, he cried, half to himself, half to me. Surely the plan could not fail. Nan, stay here until I join thee. We are near the meeting place that I appointed, and with that he darted off through the woods like an arrow. But for once I disobeyed him. After him I followed. Is this... Focus. After him I followed as rapidly as I could, for I was encumbered by my cloak, and went far enough to see him at length rush forward, enjoying in the yelling, confused melee that pushed and swore and shouted just outside the door of the mansion. I paused on the edge of the park, within the shadow of a tree. I saw in an instant that Sir Thomas had not been captured. The reverse seemed to be the case, for I noted that several of the Stratford lads had their arms bound, while the knight stood pompously on the steps, apparently giving directions as to the disposal of his prisoners. The struggle between those who had not yet been overpowered and the knight's servants still continued, and the issue seemed doubtful. Will rushed at once into the thick of the fight, and I loved him the better for not deserting his comrades in their peril. His arrival seemed to give the rest new courage, and they struggled desperately to escape capture. But it was a vain endeavor. Many as they were, the knight's men outnumbered them 3-1. One by one, the Stratford lads were overpowered, lastly even Will. He made a fierce endeavor to conquer his captors, and his strength seemed almost preternatural. I knew why. He thought of me waiting for him among the trees, and of our plans for the happy ending to this night's frolic. But at last, even he was overcome. 2 burly knaves bore him to the earth. With a shout of triumph, for a moment he ceased to struggle, and he lay as if dead. When I saw that I forgot all else, I remembered not who nor where I was. I saw only Will lying stark upon the ground. I sped forward from the tree's friendly shadow, and the next instant found myself, I scarce knew how, kneeling beside him. There was a sudden calm in the tumult about me. All eyes were fixed upon my face in wonder, but to me it was as if Will and I were alone. The rest seemed as shadows. I heard my own voice like someone's else. Like someone's else? Someone else's, probably she meant. Sobbing and calling his name. And that will be the conclusion of chapter 4. Goodbye. Goodbye, love.